Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Welcome back. I'm Derek Mata.
And I am Andrew Goody, and we are proud of you. This week, we're talking about making friends.
and it sounds real terrible for those of you who just want to listen to see what our episode's about, but the issue is, as an adult, as grown men as we are, making friends is difficult, at least in my experience, because when I was in Georgia for 3 years, I didn't make any friends that I would call tomorrow if there was an emergency.
Yeah, man. I think the way that you make friends just changes as you progress through life, right? The way that you make friends as an adult is very different than the way that you make friends as a kid. Because I have friends who I've been friends with since kindergarten. My oldest friend I met when I was 4 years old. My longest friendship I met when I was 4 years old, and I met because we ran up to each other on a swing set and said hi, and then we were friends, and that was it. It wasn't complicated. There wasn't any pressure or anxiety about it. We just were friends, and we still are.
I'm gonna try that tactic now and just see what happens. But honestly, okay, so my biggest issue is I'm not a sports guy. I'm gonna put it out there for all of our listeners, all of our watchers, whatever. I am not a sports guy. I've tried. I can't get into it. And I know a lot of people are friends with hey, my team this and my team that. And I'm like, hey, Goody, you want to go rebuild a car with me?
Well, but the thing is, you don't want to be friends with sports people anyway, right? Because that's not your thing. That's not my thing. You don't want to go and grab a beer with somebody who's just going to talk about the Cardinals all day long or whatever,
And I think maybe that's the issue with because we've had this discussion. We're on a Facebook group together. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, and that is a question that is asked a lot of the time. How do you make friends as an adult? And maybe that's the issue, is they're not sports people, so they have a hard time relating to football fans, baseball fans, basketball fans, who are usually all in one and the same. I couldn't tell you the stat of anybody. If you told me a Cardinals player, I'd be like, cool. I now know a Cardinals player for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and I think a big part of it is at some point, and you and I have kind of discussed this a little bit, that I hear this a lot from a lot of people. I hear it from you. I hear it from dads in the Facebook group. I hear it from friends of mine. I hear it from my wife that man, I'm in my 30s and it's so hard to make new friends, and that's just not an issue that I have. Emily will tell you, she accuses me of I can't go to the grocery store without coming home with a new friend. I meet people, and it's never been an issue for me. And I think people start putting pressure on needing friendships, right? And you build up these walls in your head, and again, I'm speaking kind of philosophically, because it's not really something that I do. But there's this social anxiety where you're I need friends, or
Yes.
I need to be liked by people, or I need to, I'm going to say the wrong thing and this person's not going to want to be my friend, or I'm going to say a dumb thing and they're going to be my friend, but then they're going to mention that dumb thing that I said the first time we met every time we hang out for the next 10 years.
Or my big issue is I don't want to disturb your time. Hey,
Yeah.
We may have had a connection at the grocery store, but I don't want to text you because your time is valuable to you. You don't know me. who am I to you? So like that is a me problem. So like
Yeah.
I'm not you, Goody, who's just like, hey,
Well, and
I'm happy go lucky. Let's be the best of friends. Like obviously I'm way over exaggerating this.
literally, you and I met because I shot you with a Nerf gun in our office, and then we were friends.
Well, okay, granted, we sat as far, to the sign behind me. We sat this close, so we interacted every single day.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
you're a
obviously,
friendly person.
Yeah. Well, and okay, let's touch on that really quick. Continued exposure, like, is also a way to build friendship, right? Like, I have some friends in our neighborhood that I've made because I have kids and they have kids, and we both go to the park, and we saw each other at the park playing with kids, and our kids were playing, so we started talking, and then we went our separate ways. And then a few days later, we went back to the park and we saw each other again, and like slowly kind of built that friendship. There's a whole episode of Bluey based around this, where Bandit makes friends with another dog's dad.
I was going to say, like, let's reference that one real quick.
Yeah. No, but it's like, so that like continued exposure, like, I'm not saying that you and I wouldn't have been friends if we had like met at a bar or something. We probably wouldn't, because you would have been socially awkward and not talk to me.
It's fair.
But like you and I became friends the way that we did because we saw each other every day, because we were working together, right? So and I think that's why that's part of the reason why childhood friendships, like, you don't necessarily meet. You meet more people in high school and college, because you are, obviously college, the days can vary, but in high school, 5 days a week, 6 to 7 hours a day. How long is high school? People, you are in
for so long.
You are going to a place where there are going to be a multitude of people your age that have a diversity of interests. So you're probably going to find somebody who's into what you're into, and that's why like cliques form, right? Like the sports kids like the sports kid, and the band kids like the band kids, and they all kind of hang out together. And you're meeting all of these people, and you're seeing them again and again and again. And when you get out of school, or when you get out of college, and you're not in like a traditional education, if you're not in like a club, like if you're not playing soccer on a municipal or an intramural team, or you're not going to a gym or something where you're seeing the same people all the time, it becomes harder to meet people through repetition, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we're going back to like high school days, but like as adults, let's take work from home people, you, my wife. How does somebody like that make friends? Because let's say I got a work from home job tomorrow. Let me tell you, I would never leave my fucking house ever. Like, I already hate
so there's
leaving
problem
my
number
house.
one, right? I mean, you can be a hermit and lock yourself into that life of solitude.
But how would you say to meet people? Because of course you, again, out of the two of us, are the outgoing one. I like my friends. I don't like people.
Well, and it's funny though, right? Because like I like hanging out with you, and I would like to think that you like hanging out with me.
Yeah, obviously. Hence why I'm always inviting you to my house.
But at some point, I was just people. I was people that became friend.
Yeah, I don't. But again, like we work together, so like we were forced to interact at some. Well, I mean, we weren't forced because our jobs never had to collide.
Yeah, I mean, we were forced to interact in the sense that we sat 15 feet away from each other, and I was going to shoot you with a Nerf gun whether you liked it or not, so we were going to be friends.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of it is just not, I don't know. I don't worry about making friends, man. Like I just try to be nice to people. And a big thing that I adopted, depending on who you ask, I'm pretty sure my mom would tell you I've done it since I was since I could talk, but I consciously started doing it more in like, you know what it was actually? It was my first year of college, because I graduated high school a little bit early. I graduated high school after 3 years, and so like when I went into college, I was kind of young, and I was younger than a lot of shut up. I was younger than a lot of the people that were in my classes and stuff, and so I felt kind of awkward, right? You always have that.
Yeah.
In that transition, that freshman year, like you go from being the biggest fish in high school to the littlest fish in college, especially nowadays when there are like 40-year-olds who are going back to get bachelor's degrees and stuff. Like, I was the youngest of the young. Like, I was a minor when I started college. And so I felt kind of uncomfortable. And a piece of advice that somebody gave me was start giving other people compliments, because when you give somebody a compliment, they're typically going to give you one back, because that's how reciprocal, like, society is reciprocal, right? So if I'm like, hey, Derek, nice shirt, you're going to be like, oh, thanks, man, nice beard. And now I've made you feel good, right? Because I told you that your shirt feels good, and it makes me feel good to make you feel good. And you've now complimented me on something, and that boosts my self-esteem and makes me feel better. Even if that's where that conversation ends, we both benefit from it. If that conversation leads into a starting point, which, man, Emily gives me shit all the time, because I'll be like walking through a grocery store and I'll see somebody who's dressed well. Like, we went to the bank the other day and we saw that guy roll up in the Porsche, and I was like, hey man, nice jacket. Stuff like that. I'll walk through the grocery store and be like, oh, nice shoes, dude. And somebody will be like,
a better example, Fan Fusion. When that guy in that third booth we should stop by, when you're like, hey, I like how you matched all these patterns. Like, you had a whole conversation with this man about his dress, like not his dress, but like how he dressed,
how he was dressed. Yeah.
And I was like, and I was just in my mind, I was like, how is he having this whole conversation with this man about? He was dressed very nicely, but
because I wasn't worried about it. I think that's the difference. I mean, it's hard to tell. Like, again, I'm married to a person with anxiety. I'm never going to be like, just don't worry about it. Like, just don't. When you're feeling anxious, just don't feel anxious. It's easy. Like, you have a certain pathology. You're not going to change your entire brain frequency. But, like, people put so much stress on first impressions, right? And if you do that, then the first impression that I'm going to get from you is that you're stressed out, and I probably don't want to hang out with you because you're really stressed out. Whereas if you're just like, hey, dude, nice shoes, I'm going to be like, oh, thanks. I got them at, whatever, Aldo.
Again, you know? How are we friends? Just
because of me. Not, because I wasn't worried about it and kept saying, hey.
I mean, that's fair, because, like, again, I don't ever want to feel like a bother, and I feel like that is society nowadays as a whole, is we don't want to feel like we're bothering somebody. I have tried to make the friends with the awkward texting conversations, like, hey, how's your day? Hey, cool idea. Like, I don't know. I don't even have. I have a semi example in my mind, but, like,
man. So here's the thing, and like,
I like the complimenting idea.
Yeah, like, listeners at home, this goes for you as well, and Derek, this definitely goes for you.
No,
you are not a burden. You existing is not inconvenient for people. You being here is a good thing. I want to hang out with you. Like, ditch that mentality entirely. Like, you asking for friendship, you asking for help, you talking to me is not an inconvenience. Like, that, get rid of that. Get rid of that mentality. We could go down a whole rabbit hole of what societally has caused a bunch of people to feel that way. It's religion. But, like, whoa. we'll cut that out of the edit.
No, we won't. But, like, keep that in there.
but like, you are not a burden. I want to be friends with you. People want to be friends with you. You are cool. You are likable. And, like, not everybody is going to want to be friends with you, because not everybody wants to be friends with me, and I don't want to be friends with everybody. I don't want to be friends with weird sports jock guy who only talks about golf. Not my jam. But for every dude out there who only talks about golf, there's some dude that only talks about Dungeons and Dragons or beer or whatever the thing that you're into is. So, like, you've just gotta realize that, like, when you meet somebody and think, man, that person's pretty cool, you're recognizing things that you like in that person, which means there's probably things that they like about you, like, already implicitly by the fact that you like that person, they will probably like some aspect of you. They might not like all of you. I don't like all of anybody except for my wife.
You like all of me because I'm fucking fantastic. But
I love you for everything except your rampant insecurities and anxiety.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. And the one thing
somebody's gonna clip that and make it their ringtone.
Bro, nobody has ringtones anymore.
Yeah, it's just me.
Jesus Christ. Anyways, so the one thing that I wanted to do is to make friends. So we went to Phoenix Fan Fusion. About a month ago?
Comic-Con for anybody who's not from Arizona.
All right, fair. And I commented on a Facebook group because I am super into Fallout. As you can see, my thing's mirrored. So I love Fallout. For those of you who watched episode 25. And I reached out to somebody on Facebook. Like, hey, I went to this event and I didn't see any Vault Dwellers. Like, I was super excited for it. And they said, hey, we do this thing XYZ. You should join us. Let me tell you, my social anxiety fucking spiked super high. Like, hey, I love the same thing. I want to make friends. I don't want to go to your house. So, goody. Hey, surprise. April told me to invite you.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, so like having a buffer is also like, if you're a socially anxious person, like that's a great, like find yourself a goodie, find yourself a wingman who is not as socially anxious as you are, or who is, but like you guys can kind of, play off of each other and be more comfortable because you have that familiar element. You're just not entirely in a room full of people you don't know. But yeah, man, like, because the only way to meet new friends is to meet new people, and meeting new people is always going to be new people that you don't know, right? Like by definition. So you just got to find a way to get past that.
And it's very difficult because I have not always been this way. I will say that much. Like, I don't know where it came from. It's just one day I was just like, I am scared of, scared, air quotes here, scared of society, scared of people, I guess fear of upsetting somebody, letting somebody down, wasting somebody's time, that kind of thing. And I know it's not just me who feels that way. It's probably, I feel like it's a normal thing now.
Totally. So, I mean, we're talking about this from the grand spectrum of just being like a dude and making friends, right? And I think a lot of the complication there, speaking as an American, right? I know that we have some international viewers, but I'm going to speak on this from an American perspective because I don't know how this is outside of our country. I have a little bit of a global view, and I know it's kind of culturally universal, but right now, the culture in America is very polarizing, right? People's opinions are strongly one way or the other, right? And I'm not necessarily talking political opinions in general, and it's partially because of being a society of people who consume structured media, right? Like the way that Google and YouTube and all these algorithms work, they're going to keep feeding you more of what you like, right? Yeah. And so you end up in this kind of weird echo chamber where you're consuming a lot of content that just reinforces your own ideas. And so people get like really staunchly one way or another, right? Really, really harsh. And so I feel like that builds kind of an inherent anxiety in people that like, I don't want to say the wrong thing because if I think that hot dogs are the best food and this guy is living in the hamburger echo chamber where hot dogs are the worst food and hamburgers are the best thing in the world, and I tell this guy that I like hot dogs, he's not going to want to be my friend, right? And like, I'm using food as a loose example because I don't want to pick one of the most polarizing topics here, but like,
that's totally fine.
Like it's, and I think that's really challenging because it creates this, even for somebody like me who doesn't really have social anxiety, it creates this kind of social pressure where like, man, like I don't want to say the wrong thing, right? I don't want to like, this person's pretty cool, but what if they're, XYZ that doesn't align with my beliefs, or what if they're super not into something that's really important to me?
Or even, okay, so let's say, I feel like you're very similar to me. Let's say in our case, like somebody, so we're accepting of their views, but they're not accepting of our views. And you're scared of upsetting that person because you don't know, again, pretty much what you said, but like, it's a one-way street at that point. Like, hey, again, I completely understand where you're coming from and why you believe or think or have an opinion on. Oh, you don't agree with me? Now we can't be friends. Like, you and I are friends and we don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
And that's
No,
okay. That's okay.
It is, and that's something that, again, you kind of have to put aside that fear that you're not gonna see eye to eye on everything, because you're not gonna see eye to eye on everything, and that keeps it interesting, right? Like, if this podcast was just you and me talking about our parenting, and we had the exact same ideas on everything, and didn't parent our kids differently or have different opinions or think different ways, it would be the most boring thing in the world, because it would just it'd be me going, this is how I raised my daughter, and you going, yup, that's how I raised my daughter. Like, and sometimes that's fun, right? Sometimes it's fun to hang around people who have the same interests as you, who like the same things, right? You and I both love Fallout, and so when we talk about like Fallout, we can both get pumped about that.
Yeah.
But then, like, I play games that you're not into, and you play games that I'm not into, and I have hobbies that we're both kind of into everything, but like,
we like to try new things.
And the cool thing about that is, like, I'll use Magic the Gathering as an example, right?
Of course you do.
As long as we've been friends, I've been into Magic the Gathering, and as long as we've been friends, you have not been into Magic the Gathering. But now, because of social pressure, because we have other friends who are into Magic the Gathering, you just bought your first Magic the Gathering deck, and now you're starting to learn this new hobby and find this new friend group and play this new game with new people.
To be fair, it was very Fallout related.
Yes, that's true. They just released the Fallout Magic set, which got you, but that pushed you over the border, right? Or like over the edge, and now you can now you're experiencing that new fandom. Like, so many of my hobbies are things that I met somebody who was super into it. I had no idea what it was, and I trusted them enough to be like, hey, share your thing with me. And then I found out that, like, that thing's dope. I also have things that I found out, like, that's not my thing, right? Like, I have a friend who's super into disc golf and loves, like, frisbee golf.
No,
it's his jam.
I do like.
And you know what? It's kind of fun, but it's not ever going to be like the thing I want to do every Saturday.
No, exactly. Like, I do enjoy some, like, maybe we should do some disc golf. I do enjoy it. But, like, I could not buy myself a bag with all the different weights. Like, again.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, I mean, trying, like, meeting new people is a great way to try new things, right? From a purely selfish perspective, right? Like, you're going to learn new things. You're gonna experience new hobbies. You're gonna experience new opinions by meeting people, and it's gonna make you a more interesting person. The fact that you build friendships and intimacy and fellowship and relationships and all that stuff, also great. But even if you're just looking at it selfishly, you're going to be a better person from knowing more people.
Yeah, and I think this ties into, like, our DIY episode. Like, you don't know unless you try to learn. Like, meeting new people. So eventually, we'll take my example. These Fallout people are going to have this get together where they're going to start building armor and guns, like toy guns, prop guns, cosplay kind of shit. And I'm gonna go there because I'd love to learn, because it's something different. I have no idea how it works. My brother, my stepbrother, who I mentioned in our clothing episode, our fashion episode, used to be huge into cosplay, and I was like, I don't understand it. But now, as I'm getting older, like, I get it. Like, I'd love to go to a Comic-Con and be just decked out in full Fallout whatever.
Yeah.
But it's getting out of that comfort zone, which I haven't done in a long time. But for our viewers, listeners, like, that's you got to. Like, it's weird. But again, take that buffer. Take your goodie.
So I will say, so we've been talking about this kind of generally, right? And you touched on, like, the kind of the why, right? That people don't want to get outside of that comfort zone. This is a dad advice podcast. I feel like a lot of dudes, and it's really common. Like, it's so common that it's like a media trope for women, but it's 100% also happens in men. You have a kid, you really want to be a good dad, so much of your energy goes into learning about, pregnancy, infancy, babies, toddlers, potty training, all the things, everything that we've talked about on the show and so much more, learning how to be a dad, that naturally that's going to be on your mind a lot. And so when you hang out with other people, you're going to be talking about it a lot. And you could really quickly stop being Andrew, the really interesting guy who has a bunch of different hobbies and does a bunch of different stuff, and be that guy who has a kid now, right? And like being a dad is a huge part of my personality. But for a long time after Alana was born, it was kind of hard for me to go out and make new friends that weren't dads, right? And even to hang out with the friends that I had that didn't have kids yet, because I wanted to talk about how cool it was to be a dad. And I wanted to talk about what I was learning about, which was all, parenthood stuff, right? I wasn't really picking up new hobbies in the first 6 months of Alana's life. My hobbies were learning how to raise a 6-month-old. And so it becomes this really like kind of self-isolating thing that can be a real downer, right? And it's hard to pull out of. And that's not to say that like you shouldn't talk about being a dad, or you shouldn't talk about like parenting stuff, right? But just knowing your audience, right? Like if you're going out to hang out with a bunch of your bachelor friends who don't have a kid, then like obviously you're still going to be a dad, but maybe like put that on the back burner and break out your, I don't know, sports knowledge or whatever.
Or like, hell, use that as a way to connect with another dad. Like, let's say you and I had never met. Like, hey, we're both dads. We're at the park. You're like, hey, I know that Bible verse on your arm. Fall out, boom, and now we're talking about something else, and then we're talking about something else. Like, dads meeting dads is probably, the best way to meet friends as dads. Like, hey, I get the struggles.
Yeah.
I know that there's not a lot of time for hobbies or TV or movies or XYZ. But when you get that little bit of time, like then you build that friend. Your kids will grow up. They'll need less of your time so that you can reallocate that time to friendship.
Yeah. Well, and I think like, we kind of talked about like the best friendships are ones where you don't share 100% of everything, right? You just have some kind of touchstones that are things that you have in common. That gives you a starting point right off the bat, right? Oh, you've got a kid? I've got a kid. How old's your kid? Cool. Yeah, mine's 2 years old. I totally remember that phase. Or like, oh yeah, mine's only 2 years old. What's that like? What do I have to expect moving forward, right? With your crazy 5-year-old, tell me all your stories. Like, give me your dad advice. Come onto my podcast and tell whoever will listen how to be a parent. Like,
that's right.
And you can use that as your stepping stone of similarity between you, because just by nature of both having kids, you're going to have something in common with that person.
Yeah, and again, like, just because that person doesn't agree with you doesn't mean that they're a terrible person. You can always learn from somebody else. Like, again, you're the person I look up to because I like how you parent. While it doesn't align with how I parent, I can take bits and pieces of the goodies and apply them in my own life. Doesn't mean that we're going to be enemies now and I'm never going to invite you over to my house again. But I'm like, okay, cool. I like this. I don't like this. Cool. Let's intermingle. That goes for every dad. Anybody who's listening, like, be open to those changes. Be open to different experiences. Be like, hey, I have been wondering why this isn't working. Why does yelling and screaming not work? Oh, because my kid doesn't respond to that, because every kid is different, right?
Yeah. One, and that's the more, for my money, and this is just my opinion, but I'd like to think it's pretty true. You're never going to be worse off for seeing more perspectives.
That's right. See, I can 100% agree with you on that one.
The more people that you talk to and the more experience that you get, what you learn might be that you don't want to parent your kids the way I parent my kid. And that's something to learn too. That's something to know, right? When I see dads like there was a guy who was like furiously yelling at his 5-year-old in the parking lot of the store the other day, and said, "You stop running when I say to stop running. You're not an animal." And I turned to Emily and I went, I mean, like that. His kid's a mammal. That's just factually untrue. And, like, that's not at all the way that I parent. And you know what? Like, I'm sure that dad and his kid probably have a relationship. I'm not going to say good. I'm not going to say bad. I have no idea. But like, they're doing their thing. I'm doing my thing. I observed that, and I know that's not the kind of parent that I want to be. I see other people with their kids, and I'm like, man, that's great. I'm 100% going to do that with Alana as soon as I get home. And life is just figuring out who you want to emulate and who you absolutely don't want to emulate, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go into that whole thing, because then like how we were raised in, our childhood is a whole different thing. But again, there's a reason why it takes a village that kind of exists. Like, you can't do it all on your own. Sometimes you do need that help, or sometimes you're going to take those bits and pieces of advice from the guy in the parking lot yelling at his kid. I was in the store the other day telling Noah, "You're going to get over here," because he was just kind of like running. He wasn't running. He was walking down the aisle too far. I'm like, "No, get over here," because I told you to. I had to raise my voice a little bit so he could hear me over the grocery store music, sounds, whatever. But maybe that's not what you're into, but maybe somebody else is like, you know what? Yeah, I am going to just like be more assertive. Like, again, the way you're raising your kids is not wrong. It's not right. We can all learn from each other. Like, that is the point of this podcast.
There's no right way to be a dad.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to end it early, but like, again, it takes a village. Like, I wish I had more, and I'm not saying anything wrong with you, Goody. Don't take this the wrong way.
No.
I wish I did have more dad friends who I can kind of bounce ideas off of, or take opinions from, or examples from. And I bet you there's a lot of dads listening or watching or whatever that feel the same way. Like, reach out to that Facebook group. We have seen it in the one that we're in together. Hey, who's in this area? Who wants to hang out? It's going to be awkward saying, "Hey, are you XYZ? Hey, I'm in the same group as you. I saw your post." But you know what? That could be the lifelong friend you always wanted, or you always needed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the big thing, man, is it's hard being a dude. It's hard being a person, but like, we're told from such a young age that we can't talk about anything that's hard, or anything that's challenging, or anything that makes us sad. Like, how you doing today? Living my best life. Mm-hmm. Another day in paradise. Doing great. How about you? Like, and having just a genuine dad friend who you can just be like, you know what? I'm having a really hard time because my kid slapped me in the face 3 times today. Like, it's really great. Or having a dad friend who you can be like, you know what? I'm having the best day because my daughter said I love Dada for the first time, and it was, my whole heart melted. Like, that's so important. It's so important to have people you can talk to about, the ups, the downs. So go make friends. Do it, coward.
Or just, somebody to go hang out with. Like, we touched on it in the last episode, 2 episodes ago. Like, sometimes you just got to get away, and like, if you have a friend to get away with, even better. Even if you totally. you go down to the bar, or you go down to go grab lunch or dinner or whatever, and you just want to talk about your kids together, like, away from your kids. Like, we get it. Sometimes you need that time away.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us again this week. Our social media links are all down below. Give us a like, give us a follow, share this video with people who you think you want to be friends with, and let us know.
We're here for friendship.
Comment down below, or hit us up on our social media. We'll post some posts around the same time with information. But let us know how you make friends as a dad, as a person, as a grown adult who can't just go to school and high five somebody on the swings and make a lifelong friendship out of it. What's your best approach? Do you compliment people? Do you just talk to them? Do you buy somebody a beer? What's the way that you make friends?
Yeah.
Until next week, I'm Andrew Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
And we are proud of you.